The Galactic Council chamber hung in the void like a frozen tear around the dead star Varelles, its walls made of polished alloy that shimmered like ice under starlight, reflected the silent judgment of 1,000 alien eyes. Species from every corner of the galaxy filled the tiered galleries, tall, chitinous Velnari with obsidian eyes, soft-bodied Oceans whose thoughts pulsed in colored light across their skin, armored Qatari whose breath hissed through filtration masks. All watched the lone human standing on the obsidian dais at the chamber's center. Commander Elias Rourke stood alone. No armor, no weapon, just a simple gray uniform with the blue and white Earth insignia on his shoulder. His hands were clasped behind his back, his posture calm, his face unreadable. Around him, the air hummed with suppressed hostility. The verdict was already written. Everyone knew it. Humanity had crossed a line 3 solar cycles ago. Earth had activated something the Council called temporal shielding. Not a weapon, not a drive, but a field that bent time around an object, shifting it microseconds into the future. To outside observers, anything inside the field simply vanished from the present. Bullets missed. Lasers passed through empty space. Even psionic probes bounced off nothingness. The Council had declared it a violation of the Prime Accord, the ancient treaty banning manipulation of space-time for military or strategic use. Now, the punishment was about to fall. High Arbiter Vexus of the Velnari hegemony rose from the central throne. Her voice, translated through the chamber's universal field, was cold and sharp as shattered glass. Species Sol 3, designated humanity, you stand accused of willful breach of Galactic Law Article 7, subsection Gamma, unauthorized development and deployment of chronometric defense systems. Evidence confirms your planet tested this technology during the Qatari border incident, rendering their entire strike force ineffective without firing a single shot. She paused, letting the accusation hang in the sterile air. Such power destabilizes the balance of the galaxy. It invites chaos. It whispers to every minor species that they too can defy order. Elias didn't flinch. He simply waited. The Council has deliberated, Vexus continued. By unanimous vote, Earth and all its colonies are hereby placed under Level 9 quarantine. Effective immediately. No ships may enter or leave Sol space. No data streams, no trade, no diplomatic contact. You are severed from the galactic community until such time as you dismantle your temporal systems and submit to full oversight. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some aliens nodded in grim satisfaction. Others shifted uneasily. The Osean delegate, Kale Vor, watched Elias with narrowed eyes. Something about the human's stillness felt wrong. Then Elias spoke. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. "Fine," he said. "We'll handle it." The words were so simple, so human, that many in the gallery didn't understand their weight at first. But Kale Vor stiffened. High Arbiter Vexus frowned. Before anyone could react, Elias tapped the small band on his wrist. Nothing exploded. No alarms blared. But every ship in orbit around Varelles, over 200 vessels from 100 species, suddenly went dark. Lights died. Engines sputtered. Life support indicators flatlined. On the chamber's main display, a cascade of red warnings scrolled too fast to read. Panic erupted. Velnari guards reached for weapons that wouldn't power on. Osean diplomats clutched their chests as their breathing masks failed. Even the chamber's gravity field flickered, sending a few lighter species drifting upward before emergency backups kicked in. Then, a soft blue glow rose from Elias's wristband. Across every screen in the chamber, on every alien datapad, every ship's bridge, every personal comm, a single line of text appeared in their native languages. Temporal shielding prototype. Active. You just experienced 0.03 seconds of your own future. Silence. Absolute crushing silence. Elias looked up at High Arbiter Vexus. You said we destabilized the balance, but what you call chaos we call survival. That shield wasn't built to attack. It was built because your galaxy offered us no protection when the Xylo swarm came, no aid when the Qatari fired on our colony ship, no justice when your laws favored the strong over the small. He stepped forward, his boots clicking on the obsidian floor. We didn't break your rules out of arrogance. We broke them because your rules left us to die. Calvor finally spoke, his voice tight. You just disabled every warship in this system. That's not defense. That's dominance. Oh no, Elias said. Dominance would have been letting your life support stay off for 10 seconds. Or shifting your flagship into a star. We didn't do that. We showed you what we could do, and chose not to. He turned to face the entire chamber. Earth isn't asking for your approval. We're not begging for a seat at your table. But if you think locking us away will make the problem go away, you're wrong. Because while you were debating laws, we were learning how time bends, and now, you can't even touch us. As if on cue, the lights on the orbiting ships flickered back to life. Systems rebooted. The chamber's hum returned. But the fear remained, thick, cold, and new. High Arbiter Vexus's mandibles twitched. She had expected defiance, maybe even violence, but not this. Not a demonstration so precise, so controlled, so utterly beyond their understanding. Humanity hadn't just built a shield. They'd built a door, and stepped through it while the rest of the galaxy was still fumbling with the lock. The vote was called again. Not for debate. For enforcement, Level 9 quarantine stands. Vexus declared, her voice strained. All human assets outside Sol space are to be impounded. All Earth communications severed. The blockade begins now. Elias didn't argue. He simply nodded, turned, and walked toward the exit. As he passed Vor, the Ossian whispered, "What happens when your shield fails?" Elias paused. "It won't fail. But even if it does, we'll handle it." Outside the chamber, the human shuttle waited. Its hull was dull, unmarked, ancient by galactic standards. But as Elias boarded, a faint shimmer ran across its surface, like heat rising from desert sand. The ship lifted off without engine noise, gliding through space as if the laws of physics had stepped aside to let it pass. Back on Earth, in a hidden command center beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Mira Teller watched the feed from the council chamber. Her fingers flew across a holographic console. They activated the blockade. She said to no one in particular. "All jump gates to Sol are offline. Sensor nets are tightening." A junior analyst swallowed hard. "Are we trapped?" Mira smiled faintly. "No. We're invisible." Above Earth, the orbital defense platforms powered down, not in surrender, but in preparation. Deep in the asteroid belt, construction drones welded the final plates onto silent, needle-thin vessels with no weapons, no comms, no emissions. Just temporal cores humming at frequencies no alien sensor could detect. The galaxy thought it had caged humanity, but cages only. Work if the prisoner believes in walls, and Earth had just learned how to walk through them. The silence around Earth was total. Not the peaceful quiet of empty space, but the heavy, watchful hush of a prison yard. Every jump gate leading to Sol had been sealed by the Galactic Council. Every trade route rerouted. Human colonies beyond the asteroid belt were cut off, their comms dead, their supply ships turned away by Velnari patrols. From the outside, Earth looked abandoned, dark, still, defeated. But beneath the surface, humanity was anything but still. Deep under the gray dust of the moon's far side, in caverns carved by ancient lava flows, shipyards hummed with activity. No lights blazed. No engines roared. Workers moved in near darkness, guided by soft helmet lamps and silent hand signals. Here, the silent fleet was being born. Not warships with cannons and armor, but slender vessels wrapped in layers of experimental shielding. Their hulls shimmered faintly like glass seen through heat haze. They carried no weapons. They didn't need any. Their power was in their timing. On Earth, cities kept running. Farms grew food. Children went to school. But every broadcast tower, every satellite, every data stream had gone quiet. Not broken, just switched off. The world had gone radio silent, not out of fear, but by choice. Let the galaxy think they were isolated. Let them believe Earth was waiting for rescue that would never come. Commander Elias Rourke stood on a balcony in Geneva, watching the sunrise paint the Alps gold. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. In his hand, a thin tablet showed live feeds from the quarantine perimeter. Alien observation posts floated just beyond Mars's orbit, watching, waiting. They expected desperation. They expected pleas. They got nothing. "They're getting nervous," said Dr. Mira Teller, stepping beside him. She wore a simple lab coat, her dark hair pulled back. "The Velnari sent 3 more scout drones yesterday. All vanished within 10 minutes of crossing the Jupiter line." "Good," Elias said. "Let them wonder. They're not just wondering. They're scared." Vor filed a formal inquiry with the council. Asked if Earth was deploying cloaking mines. Mira smiled. "We're not mining space. We're just skipping seconds. The truth was stranger than any mine. The temporal shielding didn't hide ships. It shifted them slightly out of sync with normal time. To an outside observer, a silent fleet vessel didn't disappear. It simply existed a fraction of a second ahead or behind. Radar pulses missed it. Visual scans saw only empty space. Even if a drone flew right through it, the drone's sensors would record nothing unusual, because by the time the drone's data reached its brain, the ship had already moved on. But the effect wasn't perfect. Dr. Teller knew that better than anyone. The longer we keep the shields active, she told Elias later that day in the underground lab, the more strain builds on local causality. We're bending time like a rubber band. Pull too hard and it snaps. What happens if it snaps? Elias asked. Reality glitches. Small things at first. A clock running backward. A message arriving before it's sent. But if we push too far, she didn't finish. She didn't need to, Elias nodded. Then we don't push too far. We just push enough. Meanwhile, on the edge of the quarantine zone, strange things kept happening. A Velnari patrol reported that their entire crew woke up speaking fluent Portuguese. They had no memory of how it happened. Their ship's log showed nothing unusual, just a routine scan near Saturn's rings. But when they reviewed their personal recordings, they found themselves singing old Earth folk songs in perfect harmony. An ocean surveillance buoy stopped transmitting. When a repair team arrived, they found the buoy intact, but its memory core filled with Shakespearean sonnets translated into Ossian glyphs. No virus, no hack, just poetry, written in code that shouldn't exist. Cale Vor, the Ossian spymaster, grew more suspicious by the hour. He didn't believe in ghosts or miracles. He believed in patterns. And this pattern pointed to one thing. Earth wasn't just hiding. It was reaching out. He ordered a covert strike team, 6 elite operatives in stealth armor, to infiltrate Earth's main comms array in the Andes. Their mission: disable the planetary network hub, prove humanity was still broadcasting, and gather proof of illegal tech. The team dropped through the upper atmosphere in silent pods. They landed without detection. They breached the facility's outer shell. They reached the central chamber, and then nothing. When they returned to their ship 12 hours later, they were unharmed. Their armor was clean. Their weapons untouched, but every one of them could recite the periodic table in Mandarin. One hummed Beethoven's Fifth Symphony under his breath. Another kept apologizing in perfect French for stepping on invisible flowers. Kyle Vor watched the debriefing feed in stunned silence. "What did you see in there?" he asked the team leader. The operative blinked. "I don't know. It felt like I was home, but I've never been to Earth." Back on Earth, Elias received the report from the Andes facility. They didn't find anything because there was nothing to find, he told Mira. We didn't trap them. We just let them walk through a memory echo. The shielding bled a little. Showed them what Earth values: language, music, science, not weapons. Mira frowned. That's dangerous, Elias. Emotional leakage through temporal fields isn't in the models. Maybe it should be, he said. The galaxy thinks we're monsters because we can vanish. What if we show them we vanish to protect, not to attack? As weeks passed, the quarantine grew tighter. The Velnari deployed gravity sensors. The Ossians sent psionic listeners. The Qatari built a ring of kinetic mines around the outer system. But none of it worked. Ships sent to enforce the blockade kept returning with scrambled logs, confused crews, and strange new habits like bowing before meals or quoting Earth philosophers. Then came the Cage of Stars. It was the hegemony's final answer. A network of artificial black holes, tiny but powerful, placed in precise orbits around Sol. Once activated, their combined gravity would crush Earth's orbit inward, boiling the oceans and cracking the crust. Not an invasion, an execution. The Council approved it in secret. Only the highest ranks knew. The activation date was set for 3 days from now. But Earth already knew, not because they hacked the Council, not because of spies, because the Silent Fleet had been watching, not with eyes but with time itself. One of their ships had brushed against the future, just for a millisecond, and seen the cage light up in red. Elias called an emergency meeting in the Himalayan command center. "They're going to kill us from a distance," he said. No warning, no trial, just silence. Mira stared at the hologram of the cage forming around Sol. "We can't fight it, not with force. The gravity wells are too dense." "Then we don't fight it," Elias said. We step aside. He turned to the fleet commander. Prepare the Helios array, not full power. Just enough to shift Sol system by 1.7 seconds. Mira's eyes widened. That's never been tested on a planetary scale. It's now or never. On the day the cage was set to activate, the galaxy held its breath. Velnari admirals watched from safe distance. Osean analysts ran final simulations. Vor stood alone on his observation deck, arms crossed waiting for Earth's end. Then, at the exact moment of activation, something impossible happened. The cage fired. Gravity wells flared to life, pulling inward with crushing force. But Sol system wasn't there. From the outside, it looked like the cage collapsed on empty space. The black holes snapped shut, their energy spent on vacuum. Earth, the moon, Mars, gone, vanished. Panic erupted across the council. Had Earth been destroyed? Had they escaped? Had they taken the whole system with them? Then 10 seconds later, Sul reappeared exactly as before. Cities lit, ships in orbit, no damage, no sign of struggle. But the message was clear. You can't trap a planet that isn't quite in your time. In the command center, Elias exhaled. They wanted to lock us down, he said quietly. Now they know we're not in the cell. We're outside the walls. Mira looked at the stars on the screen. They'll come back, stronger, angrier. Let them, Elias said. Every time they try to bury us, we'll dig deeper. Every time they build a wall, we'll learn to walk through it. And deep in the Kuiper Belt, the last silent fleet vessel powered up its core. Its mission wasn't to hide anymore. It was to show the galaxy what humanity really was. Not a threat, but a door. And doors, once opened, can't be closed. Earth did not strike back with fire or force. Instead, it reached out with memory. From hidden relays buried in the rings of Saturn and solar-powered nodes drifting near Mercury, humanity began sending signals, not through radio waves or laser pulses, but through microtemporal pulses. These were not messages in the usual sense. They were moments, fragments of time wrapped in empathy, aimed not at ears or eyes, but directly into the minds of those who ruled the galaxy. The first target was High Arbiter Vexus of the Velnari hegemony. She was reviewing battle reports in her private chamber aboard the flagship, Iron Edict, when it happened. One moment she was reading about fleet deployments. The next she was standing in the ruins of her childhood home on Velnar Prime. The sky burned red. Ash fell like snow. Her younger self, barely 8 cycles old, clutched a broken doll, crying as the Civil War raged outside. Vexus had not thought of that day in over 200 years. She had buried it deep, beneath layers of discipline and duty. Now it flooded back, not as a dream, not as a memory, as if she were living it again. When the vision faded, she was on her knees, trembling. Her aides rushed in, alarmed, but Vexus waved them away. She stared at her claws, still stained with the phantom ash of her past. On her desk, a small data chip glowed softly. It held no text, no demand. Just a single Earth phrase translated into Velnari script. We remember too. Across the galaxy, others received their own echoes. Vor, the Osean spymaster, found himself walking through a field of silver grass under twin moons, his homeworld before the Great Famine. He saw his mother hand him the last piece of bread, her skin stretched tight over bone, her light dimming. He had forgotten the taste of hunger. The Oseans had erased such weakness from their history, calling it inefficient, but now the memory returned with crushing weight. When he blinked back to his ship's bridge, tears, real biological tears, rolled down his smooth cheeks. His crew said nothing. They had all seen their own ghosts. On Qatari Prime, the War Council fell silent as every elder suddenly heard the sound of children laughing in gardens that no longer existed. The Qatari had once been artists, poets, builders of glass cities that sang in the wind. War had hardened them, but the echo reminded them of what they lost and why they started fighting in the first place. No one knew how Earth did it. The pulses bypassed all firewalls, all neural shields. They didn't hack. They simply arrived, like a letter slipped under a door in the middle of the night. At first, the Council dismissed it as psychological warfare. A trick, a weapon disguised as sorrow, but weapons hurt. These memories healed. Protests began on neutral worlds. Young Velnari students gathered in city squares, holding signs that read, "Remember Velnar" and "Earth shows us ourselves." Osean scholars published papers arguing that emotional memory was not weakness, but data, vital data for survival. Even Qatari youth raised on tales of glory started asking why their ancestors stopped painting. The hegemony tried to silence the unrest. They banned all mention of the pulses. They arrested dissidents. But you cannot arrest a memory. Back on Earth, Dr. Mira Teller monitored the response from her lab. "It's working," she told Elias. "They're not just seeing our pain. They're remembering their own." Elias stood by the window watching rain fall over Geneva. "We didn't show them our weapons. We showed them their humanity. Even if they don't have the same biology, they understand loss. They understand fear. That's universal." "But it's risky," Mira said. "If the hegemony thinks we're manipulating them, they'll retaliate harder." "They already tried," Elias replied. "They built the cage of stars and we stepped aside. Now they know force won't work, so they'll either listen or break." The hegemony chose to break. Furious at the growing dissent, High Arbiter Vexus declared a state of galactic emergency. She accused Earth of deploying chrono-psychic weapons that violated not just the Prime Accord, but the very sanctity of thought. She demanded full planetary sterilization. This time the Council did not vote unanimously. The Oseans abstained. The Qatari delegation walked out. But the hegemony had enough allies to pass the final edict. A fleet of antimatter-laced warships would be sent to Sol. Not to blockade. Not to quarantine. To erase. The fleet, named the Last Silence, would arrive in 17 days. Elias received the intelligence from a silent fleet scout that had brushed the future again. "They're not bluffing," he said in the war room. "This time they mean to burn us from the sky." Mira looked at the hologram of the incoming armada. "We can't shift the whole system again. The strain would tear space-time near Earth. We'd cause more damage than they would." "Then we don't shift the planet," Elias said. "We shift the truth." He turned to his team. "Prepare the Chronos beacon. Full broadcast. Not just to leaders. To everyone. Every world. Every species. We show them not just their past, but our future." The plan was simple and terrifying. Using the Helios array, the same system that had moved Sol out of time, they would send a single massive temporal pulse. Not a memory, a vision. A glimpse of what could be if the galaxy chose cooperation over control. But it would require power. More than Earth had ever used. They would drain every solar collector, every fusion plant, every battery on the planet. For 3 minutes, Earth would go dark. And if the pulse failed, there would be no power left to run the shields when the Last Silence arrived. It was a gamble. But humanity had no other choice. As the days passed, the galaxy held its breath. The protests grew louder. HFY War sent a private message to Earth. Not through official channels, but through an old, forgotten diplomatic frequency. It contained only 2 words: "Show us." On the 16th day, Earth went silent. Not just radio silent. Total blackout. Cities dimmed. Orbital stations powered down. Even the moon's shipyards fell still. From the outside, it looked like surrender. But deep in the core of the Helios array, energy built to unimaginable levels. Mira stood at the control console, her hands steady. Elias stood beside her. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. "For better or worse." He gave the order. The pulse launched not as light or sound, but as a ripple in time itself. It spread outward at the speed of causality, touching every mind in the galaxy within seconds. And then they saw Earth cities alive with alien students learning human history. They saw Velnari and Oseans working together to rebuild a dead moon. They saw Qatari artists painting again, their glass towers rising under new suns. They saw humans sharing their temporal shielding not as a weapon, but as a shield against cosmic disasters. Gamma-ray bursts, rogue black holes, dying stars. They saw a galaxy that didn't need rulers. Only partners. When the vision ended, silence returned. But it was a different kind of silence. Not of fear, of wonder. On the bridge of the Last Silence, the Velnari admiral stared at his hands. He had seen his grandchildren, born on a green world he had never visited, playing with human children under a shared sky. He turned to his crew. "Halt course." "But the edict," an officer began. "The edict is blind," the admiral said. "We are not." Back on Earth, the lights flickered back on. Power returned. The people stepped outside, looking up at the stars, not with fear, but with hope. Elias exhaled. "Now they know. We're not the threat. We're the bridge. And far away in 1,000 worlds, the first whispers of a new accord began to rise. The galaxy thought the crisis was over. The vision had shaken them, yes, but visions fade. Laws remain. The blockade still stood. Earth was still alone. But humanity had stopped waiting for permission. From the outer edges of the Sol system, the silent fleet moved, not in secret, but in plain sight. Their ships didn't hide. They simply arrived where they shouldn't be able to, doing what shouldn't be possible. A Velnari supply convoy near the Helios border vanished for 3 subjective days. When it reappeared, the crew was unharmed, but aged 10 years. Their logs showed no damage, no attack, just a soft blue shimmer and then silence. When questioned, the captain said only, "We saw what time costs." An Osean data core station orbiting Xylos Prime flickered out of existence for 17 seconds. When it returned, its central archive held a new file, a complete blueprint of Earth's temporal shielding, not as a weapon, but as a planetary defense system against solar flares and cosmic radiation. Attached was a note in Osean glyphs: "Use it to protect your children." The Qatari mining outpost on asteroid G7 reported a strange visitor, a human vessel, no larger than a shuttle, hovering just outside their perimeter. It made no signal, fired no warning, then without explanation, it wrapped the entire asteroid in a faint blue field. For exactly 1 minute, all seismic activity ceased. The unstable core, which had threatened to tear the rock apart, settled into calm. Then the ship left, vanishing like mist in morning sun. No one attacked Earth in return. No one dared, because every act could have been destruction but wasn't. Humanity wasn't striking. It was offering. Dr. Mira Teller watched the reports pile up in the Geneva Command Center. "They're starting to understand," she said to Elias. "We're not locking them out. We're showing them how to lock danger out." Elias stood by the main display, arms crossed. "The hegemony won't accept this. They built their power on control. And we just gave everyone a key." As if on cue, an alert flashed red. The Velnari hegemony had activated the Iron Mandate, a fail-safe protocol that overrode all local governance. Any world caught communicating with Earth or using human tech would be declared rogue and purged. High Arbiter Vexus addressed the galaxy in a cold broadcast. "Humanity spreads chaos under the mask of kindness. Their gifts are traps. Their shields are seeds of rebellion. The mandate is law, obey or burn, but this time obedience cracked." 3 Velnari border worlds refused to enforce the mandate. Their governors declared, "We will not punish our people for hope." The hegemony sent enforcers. But when the enforcer ships arrived, they found the planets wrapped in faint blue fields, human shielding gifted by unknown hands. The enforcers fired. Their weapons passed through empty air. They tried to land. Their ships phased through the surface like ghosts. Frustrated, the hegemony turned inward. They accused Kael'vor of treason for his silence. They demanded the Osean conquered hand over all data received from Earth. When the Oseans refused, the hegemony froze all trade with them. The galaxy teetered on the edge of civil war. Back on Earth, Elias knew they had to act before the fracture became a chasm. "We can't just give shields," he told Mira. "We have to give trust." She understood. The Chronos Accord. It had been her idea all along, a treaty not of surrender but of shared survival. Earth would offer the temporal shielding technology to any world that agreed to one rule. It could never be used as a weapon. Only as protection, from asteroids, from dying stars, from cosmic storms. Not for war, for life, but proposing it openly would be suicide. The hegemony would destroy the message before it spread, so they sent it through time. Using the Helios array once more, Earth broadcast the full terms of the Chronos Accord, not as a document but as a living simulation. Every leader, every scientist, every schoolchild across the galaxy suddenly found themselves inside a safe, blue-lit chamber. A human voice, calm, clear, speaking in their own tongue, explained how the shield worked, how it could save cities from gamma bursts, how it could preserve ecosystems during stellar flares, how it had already saved 3 Osean research stations from solar collapse. Then came the choice. A simple prompt: accept the accord, or remain in the old ways. No force, no threat, just a door. On Velnar Prime, High Arbiter Vexus stood in her private chamber staring at the glowing prompt. Her claws trembled. She remembered the ash, the doll, The child she had been, she thought of the young Velnari now protesting in the streets, holding signs that read, "Shield. Don't strike." She reached out and accepted. The moment she did, a soft chime echoed across the simulation. One by one, others followed. HFY War, the Qatari elders, governors from 100 neutral worlds, even some hegemony loyalists moved by what they had seen. But not all. A faction of hardliners within the hegemony, led by Warlord Kor, refused. They called the accord human poison. They gathered what ships remained loyal and launched a final desperate strike, not at Earth, but at the Helios array itself. If they destroyed the source, they believed, the shields would fail. The vision would end. Order would return. Their fleet, 50 warships loaded with antimatter warheads, jumped into Sol space without warning. Earth's defenses did not activate. No missiles launched. No lasers fired. The orbital platforms stayed dark. As the fleet approached the array near Mercury's orbit, Elias gave a single order. Activate the cradle. The Helios array didn't attack. It opened. A sphere of blue light, gentle as dawn, expanded from the array and wrapped around the entire hegemony fleet. The ship slowed, not by force but by time. Inside the bubble, seconds stretched into hours. Hours into days. The crews watched through their viewports as Earth's sun rose and set over and over. They saw cities grow, forests spread, alien ships dock at human ports. Children of different species playing in parks under shared skies. They saw the future they had tried to destroy, and in that future there was no war, only work, only healing. When the bubble dissolved, the fleet drifted silent. Warlord Kor stepped onto his bridge, his face aged, his eyes wet. He opened a channel, not to his commanders, but to Earth. What was that?" he asked, voice raw. "A glimpse," Elias replied. "Not of what will be, but of what could be. If you choose it," Kor looked at his hands. "We came to kill you." "And you could have," Elias said. "But you didn't, because even your anger has a limit. And beyond it is hope." The warlord bowed his head. Then slowly, he powered down his weapons. One by one, the fleet followed. Back on Earth, Mira let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It worked. Elias watched the hegemony ships turn away, not in defeat, but in change. "No," he said. "It's just beginning." Because now the galaxy wasn't just watching Earth. It was learning from it. And for the first time in centuries, the stars felt less like borders and more like bridges. The final fleet came not with fire, but with silence. 50 hegemony warships, their hulls scarred from past battles, drifted toward the Sol system. No weapons charged. No comms hailed. They moved like ghosts through the void, carrying not soldiers but the last hardliners of the old order. Those who still believed control was the only path to peace. At their head flew Warlord Kor's flagship, the Unbroken, its name now a bitter joke. He had broken. They all had. But the true threat was not the fleet. It was what followed. Hidden behind them, cloaked in folded space, came the Iron Core, a weapon older than the Council itself. A sphere of compressed antimatter wrapped in a singularity shell. One detonation would not just destroy Earth. It would erase Sol from time itself, leaving a wound in space-time no species could heal. The hegemony hardliners had stolen it from a sealed vault beneath Velnar Prime. They would rather unmake a world than let it rewrite the galaxy. Earth knew, not from spies, not from scans, but because the silent fleet had brushed the future once more and seen the core ignite. In the Himalayan command center, Elias stood before the main display. The faces of his team were grim. Dr. Mira Teller tapped at her console, her fingers moving fast.
"We can't shield against that," she said.
The energy release would tear through any temporal field. Even if we shift the planet, the shockwave would unravel causality across 3 sectors. Elias didn't look away from the screen. "Then we don't shield," Mira turned. "What? We don't fight it." "We protect it," she understood instantly. "The Helios array? At full resonance, not to move Sol, to wrap the core itself. It's never been tested on an object that dense. It doesn't have to work forever," Elias said, "just long enough for them to see." Above Mercury, the hegemony fleet slowed. Warlord Kor opened a channel. His voice was tired but firm. "Earth, stand down. Let us pass. This ends today." Elias appeared on every bridge screen, calm as ever. "You don't want to end it, Kor. You want to forget it." But you can't unsee what you've seen. Core's mandibles clenched. We saw a dream. Dreams don't feed our people. Dreams don't hold borders. No, Elias agreed. But nightmares do. And you've lived in one long enough. Then, without warning, the iron core activated. From the rear of the fleet, the sphere unfolded, a point of absolute darkness, swallowing light, pulling space inward. Alarms blared across every ship. Even the hegemony crews panicked. They hadn't expected it to trigger so soon, but before the singularity could grow, a soft blue light bloomed around it. The Helios array fired, not a beam, but a bubble. A perfect sphere of temporal shielding, wrapping the core in a cradle of shifted time. The singularity froze, not destroyed, not contained. Simply paused. Stuck between 1 second and the next. Inside the bubble, time slowed to a crawl. To the core, a single nanosecond stretched into centuries. And within that stretch, something unexpected happened. The hegemony fleet caught in the edge of the field didn't vanish. They experienced time differently. For them, minutes passed like years. They watched Earth, not through sensors, but through shared vision. They saw human engineers teaching Velnari students how to stabilize failing reactors. They saw Ossian poets reciting verses in Tokyo parks. They saw Qatari glass singers rebuilding a temple on Mars, their melodies harmonizing with Earth wind chimes. They saw a galaxy that didn't need rulers. Warlord Kor fell to his knees on his bridge. Tears, real biological tears, cut through the dust on his face. He saw his granddaughter, not as a soldier, but as a student in a joint Earth Velnari academy, laughing with a human friend over a shared puzzle. The vision ended. The bubble dissolved. The iron core deactivated on its own, its energy spent in the time loop. It drifted, harmless, a dead rock in space. Silence filled the comms. Then Core spoke, his voice broken. "Turn back the fleet." His officers didn't argue. They obeyed. One by one, the warships powered down their drives. They formed a line, not for attack, but for witness. Elias addressed the entire galaxy. His voice broadcast through every open channel, every public feed, every private comm. "You judged us for reaching beyond your rules, but the universe doesn't care about your rules. It only cares if you survive. We didn't build this shield to rule. We built it because no one came when we called. Now we offer it not as a gift but as a promise that no world has to face the dark alone." He paused. "Next time the galaxy faces extinction, don't wait for permission. Just say, 'Fine, we'll handle it.' And mean it." The words spread like wildfire. On Velnar Prime, High Arbiter Vexus stood before the shattered remains of the council chamber, now empty, its authority gone. She activated a new signal. The hegemony dissolves. From this day, Velnari worlds join the Chronos Accord. The Ossian conquered followed. Then the Qatari clans. Then 100 smaller species, long ignored, now stepping forward with open hands. Earth did not claim victory. It did not demand seats of power. Instead, it opened its labs, its schools, its shipyards. Human engineers worked side by side with alien builders. Children from a dozen species learned together in orbiting academies. The silent fleet, once a symbol of isolation, became couriers of aid, delivering shields to worlds threatened by dying stars, unstable orbits, cosmic storms. Years passed. The blockade was not just lifted, it was forgotten. One evening, Elias stood again on the balcony in Geneva. The city below glowed with soft light. Above, alien ships moved peacefully through Earth's orbital lanes. A Velnari transport docked at the new joint station. An Ossian research vessel drifted near the moon, studying lunar geology with human scientists. Mira joined him, holding 2 cups of tea. "They still ask how we did it," she said. "How we changed everything without firing a shot." Elias smiled. "We didn't change them. We reminded them they could change themselves." Far above, the stars shone, not as distant rulers, but as neighbors, and in every world that now carried a piece of Earth's shield, a new phrase was taught to children. When the galaxy locks down, we'll handle it, not with fear, not with force, but with time, with trust, and with the quiet courage to step forward when others step back. Earth was no longer alone. It was home.